How's it going, guys? So in the wake of the horrendous injustice of Gab losing not only access to PayPal and Stripe payment processors, but their domain registrar has pulled the plug as well, meaning we don't have Gab at this point in time. Hopefully it comes back soon. But we've got to talk about the reason they actually got censored, and that is horrible pressure from the mainstream media to censor anyone who doesn't agree with the mainstream media. It comes down purely to money to these people. It's about censoring a competitor. The saying goes for Twitter and Facebook and all these other big tech. They want to get rid of Gab, but we've got to go over and have a look at some of the propaganda that's coming out of the mainstream media. This is from CBS News. Let's have a look at it.
46-year-old Robert Bowers had been active on social media, particularly on a social media app called Gab. And on the platform's official Twitter account, Gab says it is, quote, a mission to defend individual liberty and free expression online. But many have accused Gab of becoming a home for white supremacists, particularly the alt-right.
Many have accused Gab. This is a favourite of the media these days. They love to use the term accused. That way they're not defaming, someone else has accused them. In Australia, you're not allowed to repeat defamatory statements. You're not allowed to do it in the media at all. But for some reason, in America, they can just say, oh, they're accused. We're not saying it. We're not defaming. Therefore, it's totally okay. Who cares what someone's accused someone else of? It's irrelevant to the facts. It's irrelevant to the story. Who's accused Gab? I haven't accused Gab of anything other than being a platform that is about freedom of speech and is getting victimized for it.
The platform says it's provided Bowers' data to the FBI. Our Dan Patterson, CNET senior producer and CBS N contributor here, joins me now by phone. So Dan, give us a sense. You've been talking to me all this week about this. It's been on your radar. For viewers who don't know exactly what this app is, Gab, what can you tell us about it?
They've got the expert. He's been a bit passed off as a totally objective, completely unbiased expert. Later on we'll go over the article that CNET actually wrote about Gab. I spoke about it in my live stream the other night. But have a look, or have a listen to how he speaks about freedom of speech and about Gab, essentially blaming Gab for what this psychopath did.
Rena, Gab is a crowd-funded social media site that launched in 2016, hosted on Microsoft's Azure cloud platform and Cloudflare that, much like Facebook or Twitter, allows users to post short status updates. The difference is that while flying the flag of free speech, many of the site's users repeat much of the same angry rhetoric often associated with the alt-right. A number of those users are also those who are banned from mainstream social media platforms.
Right there, he hits the nail on the head, doesn't he? Albeit by accident. People on Gab tend to be those who are banned from other social media platforms. Now, if you actually use Gab, you'll know it's full of classical liberals, MAGA populists, other nationalists, even ethnic nationalists, all these people that have views that the mainstream don't like and thus got banned, so they went somewhere where they could actually speak freely. Hence the term Gab speak freely. Already he highlights what the problem is with our society right now, the fact that anyone is getting censored, but fails to put a torch to his own biases and the fact that it's his side who are doing the censoring, thus pushing people into these echo chambers.
So what kind of influence does this app have?
Yeah, so the site has about 500,000 registered users. And when we think about the scale of Facebook or Twitter, that doesn't seem massive, but the influence outscales the volume of users. In a verse, chorus, call and response type of way, we see much of the same divisive language used by the president reflected on the site and vice versa.
Yeah, totally. Because anyone who says they agree with Donald Trump is obviously guilty of hate speech. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It tells you exactly where they're coming from, like I said. He doesn't like freedom of speech. He doesn't want you to be able to speak freely. And if you even think about saying things that Donald Trump might agree with, that makes you Hitler.
So we know Google and Apple have both blocked this app from their platforms. Microsoft has threatened to remove Gab in the past. Why?
Yeah, so in August, Microsoft threatened to drop Gab from its hosting service over two anti-Semitic posts from a user who said, and Rena, this is difficult for me to repeat, Jews should be raised as livestock, and that he wanted to destroy the Holocaust memorial.
It's not funny. It's not funny.
I am in a nest of Jews. They have cleverly shifted their shapes. One of them has taken the form of a little old woman. You can barely see her horns.
Okay, in all seriousness, it's a horrendous thing for him to say. But it's funny because it's exactly the way these National Socialists speak. They're caricatures of themselves. They constantly saying things just like that. And ultimately they parody themselves. So it's really, really funny when you hear it. Because I see them on Gab. There are Nazis on Gab. They are National Socialists. I argue with them because I don't like socialism. I don't like National Socialism. But hearing him read it out there was just a little bit too much.
Jews should be raised as livestock. So that comment was allowed to be on this app and nobody removed it?
Comments like this are incredibly easy to find on Gab. Look, if you go to Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, any of these sites...
Yeah. It is impossible to find hatred on Twitter or any of the other big social media sites. Absolutely impossible. Don't know where to look.
The mainstream leader or the leadership of these mainstream social media sites take these ideas very seriously. And many of these posts are difficult to find on mainstream social media sites. On Gab, it is incredibly easy to simply go to the site, type in a divisive phrase into the search bar, and find a stream of angry rhetoric. In fact, it is very difficult to find anything that is not hateful or find expressions of anger. These outnumber expressions of not anger.
Yet, a recent study that was done in part by Princeton and other universities from around the world found that only 5.4% of the content on Twitter was quote-unquote hateful. Twitter had 3% that was hateful, and I think places like 4chan was up around 10 to 12% quote-unquote hateful. This person is either flat out lying or he's being presented as an expert on Gab and he's obviously never even been there.
Is what Gab is allowing on its platform, is this free speech, Dan?
Well, it's kind of wrapping the moniker of free speech around hate speech.
Obviously, if they're going to bring an anti-free speech advocate, they're going to try and push that idiotic Marxist term, hate speech. Hate speech is free speech. In fact, free speech, the concept, was brought about specifically to protect unpopular opinions that the elite would like to call things like blasphemy or hate speech. That's the whole reason for freedom of speech.
And look, expressions of anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, homophobia.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
These are not air quote free speech. And
yes, they are. 100% yes, they are. In fact, the whole concept of freedom of speech was brought about to protect people's right to express opinions, no matter how hateful, bigoted, racist, stupid, or just plain wrong. It's easy to have free speech when your opinions are the popular opinion. It's not so easy to have free speech when your opinions are not the popular opinion. Hence, the protection of freedom of speech and the recognition that the right to speak freely is an inalienable and fundamental human right.
In fact, these are expressions of bigotry and very clearly anti-American.
There you have it. Freedom of speech is anti-American, according to this idiot. America, the country that literally codified the right to speak freely in its constitution that it fought and died for. Totally un-American to support freedom of speech. Totally un-American to support the founding bedrock of Western civilization. What an absolute twat.
These are indisputably the ideas of repression, the opposite of free speech.
It's the opposite of free speech to express yourself. Also, notice how he uses the term repression. Why was he repressed? Maybe it's because he was censored from other platforms. He wasn't able to actually go and debate his ideas in public without being shamed, without losing his job, or without being attacked and smeared and slandered. I mean, yes, his views were absolutely horrendous. But the fact is, he was censored and he's ended up in what was likely an echo chamber for him. And look what he's done. He's gone and done something absolutely idiotic. That is not Gab's fault. That is not on Gab. That is far more on the censorious mainstream media and big tech platforms.
These ideas repress and are designed to shut down truly American ideas like the freedom to worship and celebrate your religion without the threat or actual violence.
So, it's not American to support free speech, but it is totally American to not like violence. I mean, yeah, look, it's American to not want violence. But why is it that freedom of speech, the one thing that stops violence from escalating, how is that un-American, but non-violence is American? I don't understand. It's doublethink there. He can't. How does he connect these two fundamentally opposing ideas?
So Gab claims that it disavows political violence and says that words are not bullets. Can the company reconcile that with the speech that's being distributed on this platform?
Well, we've all heard the cliche, you cannot yell fire in a crowded room, and there's a lot of precedent to back that up.
How is giving people the right to speak their mind yelling fire in a crowded room? On that, how is giving free speech to individuals yelling fire in a crowded room, but calling Donald Trump Hitler and Orange Hitler and the worst thing since the Nazis, and he's going to destroy the country, and you better get out there and start fighting because Donald Trump, he's going to do the worstest things. How is that not yelling fire in a crowded theatre? You just listen to these idiots. Listen to the ivory tower that they're echoing in. It's gut-wrenching. Absolutely gut-wrenching.
Amplifying hateful rhetoric under the banner of free speech.
Amplifying hateful rhetoric like this or like this. I don't know. I don't know who else is amplifying hateful rhetoric. I have no idea.
Does not relieve you of the responsibility or the liability that comes from distributing this type of content at mass scale. Although Gab says they're now working with the FBI, and they posted a Medium post saying we have zero tolerance for this, that came at a very convenient time.
After a shooting, he's literally attacking Gab for saying they disavow violence after a shooting. You cannot win with these people. This is why you just can't take them seriously.
Instead of doing that before a mass shooting occurs.
Why would they come out and publicly announce, we disavow all violence before anything has actually happened? Obviously, he's never been to Gab, because all we do is say, shut up, Torba, or yes, we agree, or why are you even bothering? We all know that violence is wrong. Has he not seen their terms and conditions? It's literally against the rules to incite violence on Gab. Like, these people, like, this is the propaganda that you get from the mainstream media. I can't even be bothered with the rest of it. It's exactly the same kind of rubbish. He just wants to silence you for having your opinion that he doesn't like. That's what it comes down to it. There is no such thing as hate speech. Hate speech is a word created by communists used to silence anyone that they disagree with. Oh, I believe in free speech, but not hate speech. And I define the hate speech, and whatever I think is hate speech, you're not allowed to say. It's pure censorship. It's anti-free speech. Hate speech is free speech. The whole point of free speech is to be able to listen to people say things that are horribly bigoted, racist, homophobic, whatever. Free speech means they can express their opinion. Free speech means I or other people can counter their opinion. This is why we have free speech. This is why the West is the best. So Dan Patterson, from the interview you just watched, he is a senior editor for CNET. Let's just have a really quick look at the article that they produced, and I want to explain to you how exactly this is propaganda. So they start off with, after Pittsburgh synagogue shooting, PayPal bans Gab social network. So the fact that they're talking about this shows that they think the banning of Gab is important. Now, let's have a look at the article. You'll see how they frame it in a way to make you, the reader, believe that the completely unjustified removal of Gab services or PayPal services from Gab is somehow justified. PayPal banned social media network Gab.ai on Saturday following reports that the suspect in the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting had published a number of anti-Semitic posts on the site. Right away, Gab were banned by PayPal and it's because of anti-Semitism. Immediately they frame it as Gab did something wrong, so PayPal bans them. On the site, which is popular with conservatives and the white nationalist alt-right, classic framing, classic grouping together of widely different groups in order to paint them all as bad. National Socialists, the same as conservatives, the same as right, the same as far right, the same as anyone that the left doesn't like. It's the lie by structure. It's the way they structure the words. It's the way they structure the article, which is the propaganda. You need to be open for it because the entire mainstream media does this. So PayPal said, when a site is explicitly allowing the perpetration of hate, violence or discriminatory intolerance, we take immediate and decisive action. Really? Because you don't seem to give two hoots about the hate and discriminatory intolerance that is all over Twitter. Not only all over Twitter, but coming straight from verified approved users. Apparently that's totally fine. Apparently Facebook live streaming the torture of a young white autistic child. He's getting tortured by 4 black people. Apparently that isn't on Facebook, but this idiot going and shooting up 11 people in an entirely unjustified and horrendous act, that is completely on Gab simply because they allow free speech on their platform. Just disgusting. PayPal has been closely monitoring Gab.ai and was in the process of cancelling the site's account before today's tragic events occurred. So it was just an excuse for them to remove services. Obviously, CNET think this is justified. I disagree. Now, the way it's propaganda is right at the start, they tell you the PayPal side of the story. So PayPal are justifying themselves saying that Gab's full of hate and violence, horrible, horrible, horrible. And they leave the statement from Gab to the near end, knowing full well that most people read the first 3 paragraphs and then they stop. I wanted to show you these because the media propaganda that's coming all around the world at the moment is just off the charts. America is probably getting it part of the worst. I don't know. I haven't seen how bad the propaganda is in... Actually, no, I have seen the propaganda that comes out of Britain, the BBC propaganda, where suddenly Achilles and Guinevere and even Joan of Arc are now miraculously black. I have no idea how that happened. Well done to the BBC on doing all you can to wipe white people out of our own history. We need to open our eyes to this kind of horrible and insidious propaganda. Gab did absolutely nothing wrong. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Go check out all my other stuff if you're not yet convinced, and I'll see ya when I see ya.
She have tried to poison me already. These rats are very clever.